Hello, everyone. I'm Rose McNair, and welcome to our channel called The Great Awakening Generator. Today is Friday, the 3rd of March in the year 2023, and I am in Auckland, New Zealand, if I haven't said that yet. I tend to say it in all videos, so there we go. I'm speaking with my friend Louise from the United Kingdom today. Hi, Louise. Welcome.
Good evening, Rose. It's morning for me, but it's evening for you. So lovely to see you again.
Very nice to see you as well. So, what's your morning like?
Oh, the weather today is not as good as it was yesterday. It was a beautiful sunny day, although it was quite crisp. It was a very lovely day. I had the joy of taking a friend of mine to the seaside, so we had a very lovely time by the sea. And when they talk about you receive vitamin C, it very much was that refreshment.
Nice, very nice.
Driving, it was lovely. And then today, looking out the window, it's cloudy today, so and it's chilly. So yeah. Good day to be indoors.
So you chose the right day yesterday to go to the beach then.
With a nice cup of English tea.
Yes, good. So today, for the benefit of our audience, I just want to say our topic is Dark Night of the Soul experience. So we chose this topic because we were saying we were going to discuss the Dark Night of the Soul experience. Last time that we spoke, it came up. And we thought that we might start talking about it, I guess, because it's quite a big topic, isn't it, Louise? Dark Night of the Soul.
Huge, yeah, huge. And people will have all kinds of different experiences of this. And some may not even be aware that what they're experiencing is what we would term a dark night of the soul. They may just think that they're depressed or anxious or low or something. And that may well be the case, but it will have more relevance, when you realize or you come in touch with more of yourself. And when you're not in touch with yourself, you will just see these as being emotions that the human has, but you won't be able to relate it to the bigger journey that you're on of your own evolving and development.
So we say Dark Night of the Soul, and for somebody listening, they might think, what does that mean, Dark Night of the Soul? In fact, I didn't use Dark Night of the Soul as common language up until recently myself. Although I've had that many experiences, I didn't call it Dark Night of the Soul. I just thought it was just a tough time, and I'm going around the mountain again, of that for whatever experience, whatever reason. So I guess anyone listening might want to ask, well, what is a Dark Night of the Soul experience? What is that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And you're right, not everybody will use the term dark night of the soul. In fact, I would now, in the years that I'm in my own 60s now. And if I look back at on my life, I can recall that probably the first dark night of the soul I had was when I went to boarding school at a very young age of 11. But of course, you're still very much in the early developments then. And it would be tempting to say that it's not possible for you to have a dark night of the soul at the age of 11. Well, it's actually possible for you to have the dark night of the soul at any age, and really what it means. And I kind of decided that I was going to go for a textbook explanation here, but of course all of us will have our own experiences here. But it says here the term dark night of the soul is used as referring to spiritual dryness, the absence of experiencing the presence of God, but also more generally to describe an extremely difficult or painful period in one's life. That's obviously, a wonderful thing to hear, because if that is something that is happening to you, the first thing that I want to say as a compassionate soul here, and I know you agree because we've had this conversation, is please don't worry. Please do not think that there is something wrong with you. because there isn't. It is all part of the process of you being here, but we'll get into this. The next thing was, what happens to the soul when it goes through this thing. And it says, the phrase dark night of the soul is often used informally to describe an extremely difficult or painful period in one's life. For example, after the death of a loved one, a breakup of a relationship or marriage, or if you've been diagnosed with something, that you're in fear of, or fear for your life. Death itself is something that can create an awful lot of anxiety within people, and you can have an experience within yourself as the human of going into some deep anxiety on this. The other thing here is, it says the dark night of the soul is a stage in personal development when a person undergoes a difficult and significant transformation to a deeper perception of life and their place in it. That I thought was very helpful. So note that one. I will say that one again, actually. The dark night of the soul is a stage in personal development when a person undergoes a difficult and significant transition to a deeper perception of life and their place in it. So the discovery is that we're really just trying to find out in the end, when we start that question of who am I, why am I here, what am I here to do? All those sort of questions then become answered in this situation of calling the dark night of the soul. It's a junction, where we think, it's not pleasant by any means. A dark night of the soul is quite worrisome, because you definitely think there's something wrong with you. I mean, I don't know if you can recall how old you were, Rose, when you first had yours.
Well, I was quite young, I think, when I had my first one. But also, now that we're talking about it, and you came out and asked me the question, and I think some of the things that I've been through, even as a child, even before the age of 10, I mean, I would not call it dark night of the soul, but I think it is kind of dark night of the soul now that I think of it. I think times when, you don't feel supported as a child, you're not feeling the support and protection, for example, of those around you. And I'm also wondering, just it pops into my head now. No, let me finish answering the question to me. So I would have to say very young. Maybe I've had dark night of the soul even when I was 3 years old. And I don't know if that makes sense, but just thinking about it, I think it does. So it's just a very an interesting question. It's weird also, because you wonder, right? Now that you asked me that, and this is popped into my head. Imagine children, for example, that are having these terrible experiences as children, as babies, or as, like abused children or whatever. We have to wonder if that's a dark night of the soul. Not that, I know that it's inflicted on them by others, other humans or whatever, but you do have to wonder about the concept of dark night of the soul, how vast it is when you think of that, right? Because that is not an experience you invoke yourself into, or a person can invoke themselves into. It's a child, it's just like, very in it. I'm fumbling here. I'm trying to get my words together. The one of the penalties of being young and innocent and not really charge of your life, and then somebody takes advantage of you because they can be, or So I know that went off on a completely different tangent, but it just popped into my head, and normally what pops into my head, I will suddenly say the thing. But yeah, I think I was quite young, and I've had so many of them.
But then these are all definitely your experiences, which will add to your perception of life, your perception of others in the world and around you, which accumulate over time. And I think one of the things that I was talking with my friend yesterday about, when we were at the sea, and I knew that I would be coming on to talk to you about this, which was a very wonderful opportunity to kind of share some light on this vast subject, was that one of the things for many of us, and we will all resonate with this, is that the training that we have here, as the human part of the human race on planet Earth, and the system that we enter. And there's a lot of conversation at the moment, it's very current, about the systems that we're in. But in the matrix and in the systems that we're in, one of the things that is rarely taught, if at all, I might even say, is our spiritual perspectives, our spiritual natures, our spiritual beings, in terms that we can take hold of and run with, and knowing full well that at every stage of our experience here, we're loved, we're seen, we're understood, and we're meant to be here. It's not a mistake, no matter what somebody has said to you about your presence here. Some children are often told that they were a mistake. Well, nobody's a mistake. It may be a mistake for the person who conceived you, because the relationship they were in wasn't ideal, or the circumstances in which you came into being wasn't ideal. That's the mistake for them. But the person themselves that is created is never a mistake. It's never a mistake. And often we take on the life's experience of the one who's having it as being our own thing. It must be our fault, it must be our problem. And all of us have this. We're never good enough. We're never in the right place or the right time. It's we never say the right things. We don't do things in the way that other people expect us to do, and all of this. It's this other people's expectations. Well, we're not in control of any of that. We're only in control of what we can do and what comes to us, and our perception of life. And it's this that we're looking at when we're talking about the dark night of the soul, which would come under a heading of the awakening journey. It's a subtitle, it's a subheading, but it's a very big subheading, and there are lots of subheadings under the awakening, because it's a massive experience. But we're not taught this in this planet in a way that the youngsters, for example, would just take on naturally. I do know that there are cultures that teach their children meditation from a very early age, and my God, how awesome that is. To be able to grow up in that environment, and I think they stand a better chance of knowing themselves more than we do in the West. Particularly, I think we're very lacking in this. It's very patchy. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, it does, but it's very patchy for the majority of us. But to have this sort of training that that when we come in, that regardless of your circumstances, regardless of the people around you, there is nothing wrong with you. You're 100% love and light. You're 100% where you're meant to be, and you're 100% on time in this planet, ready to embrace whatever it is that lies before you, for your personality, for your unique life, etc., etc. But we're not taught that at some point that you have to take yourself aside to allow all this energy and all this learning and all this activity to integrate with yourself, or for you to get in touch with nature so that you can just process the energy that is going on, because we're not taught about being energetic beings.
Right.
You say something. Yeah.
So what I just listening to you, what I'm thinking about is this, that there are cultures, speaking of the cultures that teach their children to do meditation.
Mm.
There are cultures that do that. There are cultures that have been doing that for thousands of years, and I come from those cultures. I'm my heritage is Indian, and so my ancestors come from India. Although I don't come from India, but my ancestors do. But a lot of times, the generations that follow those that were here 2,000, 5,000, 3,000 years ago, don't use these. They've forgotten the way of the elders, so to speak of. And so I was not brought up with meditation as part of my life. So I had to awaken and come back to this. And so what what I find is that right now in this time and space, there's a lot happening. Many of us, there's this great awakening that's taking place on the planet. There's some people that look like they're not awakened. There's some people that you can see very quickly are awakening. You can also see people that you spoke to 12 months ago that were like totally not into anything awakening, and you speak to them now, 12 months later, and there's a different narrative altogether. There's a different thing that they're doing, that's a paradigm shift from what it was. So I think how it is right now is relative and relevant. And anytime it's relative, whatever we're going through is relative and relevant for that time. And because we have that amnesia, as we've been told, we have that amnesia before we come to this planet, and we are finding ourselves in the whole process, then the way it is okay, but it's what we do about the way it is. It's how we awaken to the self and to what our guidance system is saying. And it's about getting to know what it is that we're supposed to do. And the way we do that is through meditation. It's coming back. One of the things is meditation. It's coming back to self and coming back to, okay, I don't like what's going on around me. I don't like how difficult it is. I don't like it that I can't reach my God self and I can't hear the voice, the higher self, the inner voice within me being my guidance system. And if people truly believe in God and praying and all of that, and they're doing all of that, and it's not working because this is all of some of the elements of the dark night of the soul experience, then the things that we to come back into balance and come back in tune with your higher self. We do the meditation, we do the mindfulness, we do the walking in nature, we do eating organically, all of that to bring the balance and into the mind and the body and the spirit, right? So I think for this time and space, it's okay if we didn't do meditation or whatever. We don't come from cultures like that, but it's kind of the dark night of the soul, is it not? Isn't the dark night of the soul waking us up to ourselves? Right?
Completely. 100%. 100%. But it's like we were saying, is that there's no real training for that except us going, sort of, head on into the experience, to just sort of try and do our best to navigate it in a way that we can. But of course, this also depends on the awareness and the character that you are, the maturity of you. I when I look back, I mean, really and truly, I've been basically so sort of say innocent is the word I'd like to use. And naive is something that I would also add there, but it's sort of more feels like a sort of a chastisement to me, because if you don't know something, you just don't know something. And this is often what I found at school or even at home, back in the day when my mum used to say, you should know better, and I go, well, why should I know better? Because if I've not come across something before, it's somebody's expectation of you is that they actually want you to be older than you are or know more than you do, so that they don't have to be bothered to do anything to assist you or to support you or whatever the case is. They just don't want the work. They just want you to know, so that they can leave that responsibility with you. But it's not the same. Just going back to a conversation you had earlier about the meditation, there's a lot of people, and I think about my own experience of growing up, and hearing the word meditation and not really understanding what it was. And many people today, as we know, are waking up for the first time. This is their awakening life. For many of us, we've been awake a lot longer than we think, but our awakening is deepening. We're moving into more and more space of getting to know who we are. We're asking more questions. We're digging in deep. We're releasing more stuff that we realize we don't need to hold on to anymore. And all of this is all part of that awakening journey. And again, it's all part of this experience of the dark night of the soul. But the meditation, again, I just thought, just for the sake of people who may be listening who haven't got into meditation, what is it? And it can be a variety of things.
I was hoping, Louise, that we will hold off with the meditation part, just for the moment.
Yeah. Okay, I was just going to give a sort of vague description and not, just not go into the
No, no, no.
details of it. But it's basically, you looking in, as you were
Yeah,
saying, looking
I
in,
understand.
training your attention awareness.
What
Yeah,
I'm hoping we do in the process is that we, at the end of it, we tell everyone the techniques, and in that part that you remember, we bring the meditation
mm,
in.
okay, yeah.
When I look at this,
Um,
thinking one of the things we needed, what I was going to ask you is, why do you think we have dark night of the soul experiences? And we've already answered that question. Why? Because we're
mm,
awakening. It's having that tough experience that actually puts us in a position where we start to awaken and think, why is this happening?
yeah,
Not doing. It's almost like a dark night of the soul experience almost stretches us beyond the comfort zone. Well, not almost, it does. It takes you out of what you knew to know something new, and you sort of go through that refinement process. It's almost like you're being fashioned. You know how they say when you refine glass, you put it through the fire. It's refined through the fire. So you go through the fiery furnace, so to speak of. It's almost like with that piece of glass. It's going,
definitely. Great
and it comes
description.
out clearer and more beautiful, right? So that's one of those things that happens. But I want us to go a little bit deeper into this before we come to the meditation part. Sorry, I'm not trying to distract you from that.
Yeah,
We're going to talk about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
One of the things, so I feel like, I know we're having a short discussion on this today, but um, to get into the guts of it, we were talking earlier about when was, you asked me when do I remember, did I remember when was my first? And and no one's ever asked me that question before, so it kind of stumped me, and that's why I thought about it. But what I want to say, that's why I thought about it like that, and I fumbled. But what I want to say more about it is that, to our audience, if it sounds like we're making Dark Night of the Soul experience sound very hairy flary, and you can get through it. We know you can't. We know that for my experience, some of my Dark Night of the Soul experiences, I still remember them on Shudder. Despite the learning that I went through, despite the big transformation that happened in my life from that point. But because I'm thinking about the one that I went through in 2010. Between 2009, 2010, I had a Dark Night of the Soul experience. And I was a Christian, and I was using all my Christian tools to come through that. And it didn't work. Nothing worked. You know how if you're in the Pentecostal church, they would say, you enter the realms, you enter the presence of God, and you go in with praise and worship, and you do all of those things. And then you get in there, and that's when you ask. There was a process we were taught about how you ask God to move in your favor. And you know what? I questioned, God, did you have yes at that time? And to this day, although I come through it, I never came to an answer. I never got the answers I was looking for. Everything that I was taught and put into action didn't happen the way I didn't get the end result. And it sort of changed my relationship with God as I knew God then. And I don't even, there's just no answer for why there was no answers like I expected. But the only answer is that perhaps my soul needed that transformation. But sometimes I think, God, you could have been a bit kinder and helped me out a little bit, because it was that desperate. And so I just want to say to our audience, I know we're talking about it, and Louise is very encouraging in how she's saying, it'll be good, you'll come through it, it's fine, everything, you go through it. But we are not meaning it like it's, hairy flary or easy, because we know it is far from easy. It is like one of those things that I think a Dark Night of the Soul can even kill a person. It might even put people in positions where they think they want to come out of this lifetime.
Yeah. Well, I that's a great opening, because one of the most memorable Dark Nights of the Soul I had, I did get to a point of being very suicidal, And I want to reassure people that, you know, when you reach these sort of brinks of your humanity because of circumstances, you know, overwhelm, just tired, fatigue, you know, you're reaching the end of your own patience, you know, your own desire to live, you know, your circumstances may be driving you nuts and you just don't know how, you know, how to get out of them. There may be a relationship that you're stuck in that you don't know how to leave, and it causes you deep anxiety and trouble. And you as a soul just sort of feel stuck and you know, a lost child, needing help but not knowing where to go. You know, all of these things are very normal in a circumstance when a soul is doing its very best to align itself to its unique and natural and normal function. And there is another word that I would never have known to use, of aligning oneself to the fullness of who I am. Again, it's not something that that we're ever taught. What is alignment? How do you align with yourself? You know, this isn't taught. You know, when you're in an organized religion or something, you're taught many wonderful things, you know, that will help you in forms of the readings that you hear may inspire you, may fill you with adoration and love for something or someone, or hopefully more for yourself. And the appreciation of the self that you are in the world and what you are able to do, because you're an incredible thing. You're an incredible piece of, you know, spiritual wonderment. Um, um, and we don't know how necessarily to use this. So we're learning how to use this technology, this incredible technology that we are, and get to know that it actually is a sentient thing. It has these feelings and everything that go along with it. The emotions are all part of this incredible technology, to know how to navigate it and use it the best way possible in this world. When I first learned about the word you know, that we could manifest, what was manifestation, that of course excited me to think, oh my God, the world of manifestation, I could manifest all kinds of things. And of course your ego then will take you into all manner of things of what you want to, and to manifest, and the desires that you think are what will bring you happiness, but you know, but they just not necessarily will. But you're learning all these new words, and it's trying to sort of put it all together. It's an entirely new world that you are growing into, of language. And this is what we call expanding yourself. You're expanding your experience of the nature of who you are, and what you have, because there is an infinite source of life that flows through us, and it's impossible in one lifetime to live it all. It's impossible. But we accumulate and we grow and we develop and we build on a lot of the experiences that we have. And I'm for this in this lifetime, I'm a first time believer in that I've been here before, consciously. I remember the day that I realized, my gosh, it isn't just one life, and I've only got one life to do it, and then that's it. I've had many lives before. I've come with history. I've come with experience. And this is some of the things when you go places, or you're hanging out with certain people, and something tells you that something's familiar. That's not telling you a lie. There is some history in there that you know, you don't necessarily need to know the answer, but just to be aware that what you're feeling is true. Your inner being isn't lying to you. And that's the other thing we come to with this dark night of the soul, is that you've told yourself so many truths before in all your lifetime, but there's been nobody to support you in that, because we've kind of led ourselves to believe that we have to do what other people say, or we are what other people tell us that we are. We haven't yet come to that question in ourselves of, well, I know other people say I'm this or I'm that or whatever, but I don't know who I am. So if I don't spend the time getting to know who I am, I won't know then how to respond or be in alignment with the nature of who I am. And it's this part of that awakening journey, dark night of the soul. It's part of this development that we're going through into finding out who we are. And in fact, if you are going through a dark night of the soul, I want to say to you right here, right now, because it is a very, very precious point in your experience. I want to say you are bang on target. You are bang on target. There is nothing wrong with you. You're on the spiritual precipice of a new development for yourself. And it is going to be painful, but what you're going to do is that you're going to be able to let go in one way or another, whether it's with help from somebody or through learning of your own, entirely your choice. I know you can reach out to either one of us in conversation. I did a spiritual directors training years ago, and I knew that one of these issues was because I'd come through the dark night of the soul at that point, this was going to be something that I would be talking to people about at some point. Again, because I had deepened my own experience in it. But you're bang on, and you're on the precipice of the next evolution of who you are. And you're going to unfold and awaken other gifts within you that you can't at the moment, because you're holding on to things that are now ready to leave. They've served you to this point, and then you have to let it go. And when you look at nature, I've always gone encouraged to go and look at nature. When you look at the nature of a seed, for example, you know, you've got this tiny little thing, but in this tiny little thing, within there is the history of the development of what it's going to be. It's never going to be nothing. It's always going to be something, and it's going to be something quite beautiful. It's going to be something quite unique. And within this tiny seed, it has to go through an awful lot of things in order to break itself out. It has to be put into darkness. It has to be put into moisture. It has to have the right circumstances in which to help it grow and break out. And then as it's breaking out, it can be breaking out in darkness when you can't see any light. All these are metaphors for your spiritual experience. And it's not that anything's wrong. It's you finding peace with yourself in these moments. But you don't know this if you've never been told this, because we're never taught this, which is why it's always wonderful then to come across people. I've been gifted with these people in my life to help me put together what was occurring for me. Now, likewise, I now hand that on, you know, to the generations who are experiencing it now. But you're bang on, and the development that you're in is it's exciting, but it's not going to be easy. But you will get through it because you're a warrior and your spirit is strong.
I was going to say, you know, we would come to one of the things you can do through this time of going through a dark night of the soul experience is meditation. But before we go to that, this is what I want to add to what Louise was saying. I've just come through a dark night of the soul, and to be honest, I don't know when my dark night of the soul started. It got really intense in the last 2 years, and you know, but I think if I had to reflect on it very clearly, it started 5 years ago. And it was a dark night of the soul that kind of made me think I wasn't in one, because things got weird, and then it got better, and it got weird, and I thought I was overcoming something, and then suddenly it was back. So I kept going on that roller coaster of things being a certain way. Like, for example, one example, and I'm getting into granular because I would like our audience to understand what they're going through in the dark night of the soul. You know, for example, my work in 2018, I had this amazing project, and I had lots of other clients plus a big project that I was working on, and I managed everything really well. And you know, money was flowing in a great way and all of that. And then one of my big project was suddenly put on hold, and then I thought, well, what do I do? Do I go and get another contract? And because it was in the stages of where it was, and that we had to wait, we had to do surveys, and we had to wait to get things coming through, I decided that I was just going to be loyal to that client and stay with that big project. But every time we looked like we were going to take off, we stalled, despite going out and doing surveys and everything. And then it eventually became, after 3 months, it became 6 months. And then before I knew it was 12 months. And here I was sitting with this project that I should have been having X amount of income from. And I only got maybe a third of what I should have been getting in all that time. And so you can imagine when you have an expectation of something like that, and then you're stalling because you have loyalty to the client, you are in the midst of that project, and you're thinking, well, if I leave this, they would have to get somebody else to come in and start and get the hang of it from the beginning. So the loyalty was to the client, but also if I go and find, your integrity as a business person, all that stuff was something to think about. And I just thought, well, it's going to take off, so it'll balance out. And so it did. Eventually it did. It looked like it was balancing out. It was great, but because of the lapse of that period that we had in the 12 months prior, everything else sort of bolts up, and then there suddenly were these issues that, okay, I've come through historically from that 12 months. And that was just the work side. There was all these other things happening in my personal life and all of that. And so now I think in the last 2 years, some of the things that have gone on in my world, it sort of made that thing of I'm asking my guides for guidance and I can't hear them. So either I'm deaf or they are, because they're not hearing that I need help. So, when you're asking your guides for help and you're saying, well, hey, look at me. Can you see what's happening? And it's not coming together. You sort of think, well, have you left me? What's happened? We've been told I will not leave you, nor will I forsake you. What's happening now, God? But what I've learned from it is that when you're going through that process where you've done everything you can do, there's been circumstances. A lot of the circumstances, like I've been describing, have been outside of my control. And if I had put myself first, and maybe that was the thing, I should have put myself first, and I should have. Maybe that was the lesson. Put yourself first. If it's not going to work out, just say goodbye. I'm off, But then I'm also not heartless. I'm also not without integrity. And so there's all that balance that you have to find, right, in situations like that. And that client of mine, the best CEO that I worked with belongs to that client. I have such an amazing relationship with Simon because he has got so much integrity with the way he deals with business. And I want to work with somebody like that. So that was my value that I got out of it, right? But the other parts of it suffered. So I think it was a good learning experience. However, I think in the last 2 years, now that we've come through all of that, in the last 2 years, still talking about work, I have signed up about 10 to 12 contracts that went bust in the first month because what was actually being negotiated in the discussions that we had prior to the contract, what the contract said, were in breach when we went to the actual operational side of the contract. And so as a result, I think, why am I copying this? Why do I keep getting these clients that say one thing and mean another thing? Am I looking like that's the kind of person I am? So I feel like a lot of that was, again, I'm like, God, what's happening? I'm trying to live. I'm trying to earn an income. And yet I keep thinking I've got these clients with integrity, but I keep attracting these ones that are showing integrity initially and then turning up without it. There was a client, we had negotiations we started talking from March 2021, and they signed the contract with me on the 1st of July 2021. Because that's how long the discussions were going on for. And then by the 15th of July, it was over. Because whatever they said was meant to happen actually didn't. It was double the amount of work. The expectations were inhumane, that kind of thing. So this sounds
Patterns.
Patterns. I mean, this sounds like what I'm talking about. It sounds like a lady who's got can't pin down a client, is lacking the wisdom to work out, strength of character or the caliber of people to deal with and all of that there. And I can assure you, I don't have issues with that because generally my instincts about people are pretty good. But in the dark night of the soul, I think people can come along and do that with you. But it's about the soul's journey and what we have to learn and what kind of relationships we're building. And it's highlighting to us what we want in relationships. Because, if you want integrity and you want good, wholesome people, if you want to align with the right kind of people that align, and when I say align with the right kind of people, I mean aligning with wanting the same things you want. If you want integrity in a relationship, they want the same thing, right? So I think
finish what you're saying. Yeah,
so I think it's building characters. I feel like, that was just one aspect, like I was saying, one aspect of my life was about the work, and I had to go through that. And I finally got to a stage where I've got this one client that I've worked with for many years now, and I still work with this client. And I just, that's it. I've expressed interest in other contracts, and I've got to a point where I'm not even hearing back from people. And I tell you what, I imagine not even hearing back from people and thinking, well, what's wrong with that now? What's the picture there? Is this, does someone have it in for me or something? But I think what is being highlighted to me is there's a few things that's being highlighted to me there. That perhaps I'm no longer interested in that kind of work. And that's that's my thing. Like maybe I needed to wake up. That is not the way to go. Maybe I needed 12 failed contracts to realize that's not where you're supposed to be, Maybe it took that long for me. Maybe it takes that long for me to get that, right? But at the end of the day, the happiest I've felt in the last 2 years in terms of what I'm doing is this last 2 weeks when I'm doing this stuff. And I'm like, is that what it was all about? But even when I thought about this before doing this, how many times did we have conversations we want to do this? And it actually, we talked and then we forgot about it for 6 months. Right. And so I think that it's about the journey. And my point with this is not just to talk about myself here, but I can only talk about my experience, right? Because I'm in it. And I feel like when things are like that and you feel like you're just cornered and you don't know which way to go, and you feel like God's not hearing your voice, or you are not hearing the words of God or your guides or whatever, all I can say is trust in the support of the people around you. That is what I was coming to. I could not have gone through with my last 2 years without my soul family, without people like Louise, without people like Fred, without people like my daughter. Because she is so into understanding this. And even my daughter, where I know that ordinarily she might have criticized me, or she might have said something, in a way that's like a parent might say when we are 5 years old, oh, why are you doing that? You should know that, or something like that. She didn't. And I was so pleased for the fact that I had people around me that didn't support failure as a reason for this, didn't support words like, but you know better than that. Or why don't you just take whatever's coming your way? Because even whatever was coming my way was like, I was trying to take it and they were saying, no, you're overqualified for it. Stuff like that, right? And so I think that's what I feel that was the best part of this whole thing, was the support of my soul family and my daughter, and just having people to talk about it. And I know that I could not keep my sanity without meditation. I could not keep my sanity. There were times when I thought, well, I'm not talking to you, God. Don't worry about me. It's okay. You can stay there and I'll stay here and I won't talk to you because you ought to know better than to put me through this or to allow this to happen to me, because it's your business to look after me. But actually, it's my business to look after me. And that is what one of the things are that I'm learning through my journey, right? But also, when you think about it, right? when we are going through a um, dark night of the soul experience, even your guides cannot step in and help you if your soul is meant to do that evolution through that process. That's what I'm learning. They won't let anything happen to you that is detrimental for you, but they can't interfere with that actual experience, that learning that you have to get through. They can't interfere with that. That's the soul's journey. What do you think, Louise?
Yes, it's interesting, the perspective of, you know, who is your God, you know, to start with, you know, who is your God,
Yes.
and what is your God made up of? I mean, I remember sort of coming through, having been raised as a Church of England person, and finding God. I mean, I found God in the form of the stories that my religious teacher at school used to, you know, share with us in class, and the way in which she spoke about this man Jesus, you know, had me completely sold. I wanted to meet this man. I needed to meet this man. I needed to ask him questions. He seemed to be the dude of the day, you know, and you know, he's got all the answers. So, you know, if he is making himself available to me, I got some questions, you know, and I was 11, 12 at this point, you know, when I was learning about this, and I was at ideal when I could be in the dorm on my own, you know, and there was nobody else there because most of the girls there were weekly boarders and they'd go home at the weekend, and I'd be in there on my own, and I just took the opportunity one day to say, okay, you got to show yourself, you know, show me that you're real, show me that this really happens. And I've done this several times in my life, by the way, because after this point, while my faith was being built on a religion that was being told to me, the God that I was forming in my mind is not the real God. It's my perception. It was my perception of this God. And so therefore you already are being dictated to by, you know, a particular doctrine, you know, of how you are to approach this God and what you're to do and what's right and what's wrong before this God. And, you know, in order to appease this God, you know, you have to do this, particularly after the Church of England, I left school. Going back to that question of what happened in the dorm, Jesus never came, needless to say. I never had any apparitions or anything. There were no magical moments, you know, from that experience. But I did go on to carry on with the questioning of this whole circumstance, which once I left school, and I had a number of, I would say, religious experiences within that. I mean, I had dreams, I had an out of body experience, you know, and all of this, which got me again to continue to question, what was this all about? How is this? What is this? And but didn't have anybody to discuss this with because, you know, it's personal, and I wasn't confident that anybody could actually answer my questions. Certainly not my parents, and I certainly didn't want to bring this particular out of body experience to my religious teacher, because I wasn't quite sure of the ground. Again, not being mature enough at that age of being able to even vocalize what I was experiencing. That's the other thing that you will have, is that there's a lot of experiences that we'll have. You haven't yet got the vocabulary on the landscape of your experience to be able to even put it all together. So you're just literally going through the motions and experiences and building this up. And then you get to a point of, I would say, a crisis point, where these questions suddenly start to go, I can't go on like this. I can't do this anymore. I'm obviously a failure. You know, you get this sort of barrage of, you know, attack upon yourself, that you're obviously not able to cope. And it's not the truth at all. It's just not the truth at all. It's just a lot of things coming at you in a direction that is guiding and steering you, as you say. You know, I don't know about the guides not being able to help yourself. I didn't know anything about guides at that point. I wasn't really in touch with my guardian angel at all. I had no relationship with anything else other than this God that was supposedly in heaven, which is out here, up there somewhere, that was supposed to be looking out for me. But everything just didn't seem to be going that way, but in my heart I felt something else, but I couldn't vocalize what that was. So the journey really was coming from whatever was out here and bringing it in here and living from here outward. And that's what I probably can explain has been my life, the journey of my life. And everybody, so many people on a spiritual journey will be able to identify with that language. But it's not possible to do as you're going through the process, because you don't know. You have to experience it first, and then you have insights. Something dawns on you. Something inside becomes part of your awareness, and then you're able to start putting these pieces together. But this dark night of the soul is a necessary journey for anybody who's who wants to live a life of consciousness, being grounded on the earth, doing their best, being the best version of themselves. It will be part of your experience, and you have to come to terms with who is your God, what is your God, and what do you think your God is expecting you to be? Because I remember through this journey coming across, once I left all organized religion and became a child of God, I remember reading a book which was promoted by the lovely Michael Bernard Beckwith, who I came across after I left the church. And one of his congregation, I can't remember his name for the moment, but he wrote a book about his experience of being gay, but still being loved by God. He's now a minister of his own, I think in New York or something. But he wrote a very lovely part, which amused me incredibly. Write a letter to your God, and if your God isn't being loving to you, sack him, her, sack him. Just say enough. You're fired. You're fired. God, you're fired. And I'm going to find the God who actually loves me and adores me for who I am, knows everything about me. And I don't have to answer or question anything, but knows my journey. And I remember doing that particular exercise, and I fired the God that had been my apparent, God before, and learnt to lean into a much more loving God, as opposed to the one that I had learnt through the religions that I had come through. And it's made a world of difference. It's made a world of difference. The God within me is the God within all of us, and the God within all of us is love. And that love journey it can be quite treacherous, but love is, it has its moments, it has its highs and its lows. But this is the point about being alive. You don't want to have something that's just easy all the time, because you won't learn. And I'm not saying that you have to have pain and suffering in order to grow, but we have to be stretched. We have to be stretched, or we become too comfortable, and then we want life to be too easy, and then we become weak. And this is part of it, where we want to be alive and strong and vibrant and energetic, but we also want to be at peace. We also want to live in harmony with stuff. And all of that, when you look at nature has it all. Nature is both violent, the rage of the sea or the wind, or the volcanoes. This is active, this is vibrant, this is alive, this is full of energy. And then the next moment it can be completely the opposite, like a mill pond, and the ground is still and flourishing and all that. So when we look to nature as for the understanding of God and of ourselves, I think you probably come up with a much more helpful and holistic support in how to nurture yourself and how to be in the world. And I think, the dark nights of the soul that I had, I certainly used the scripture that I learned so well during my time. And I loved every moment of it. I think I've said in my last interview with you, I don't regret any of my spiritual journey at all, because it's all part of this experience of mine. And I learned to lean on some of the Bible quotes and stuff, but one that really disturbed me, which was one of the greatest dark nights of my soul, was that I discovered that my faith had been built on sand. And that was devastating to me, absolutely devastating to me, because I felt that I had been such a loyal and contributing member of the faithful, but I was learning things that other people told me about, as opposed to what I really knew within my own heart. And to be told then that, you know, my faith was built on sand was devastating. And I spent a period of 3 months in darkness, and I would describe that now of having been on a very rough sea, you know. But the story of it is that, you know, but then I find myself in a boat, so I realize actually I'm being held, I'm not drowning, you know, but while the sea is still rough and all of this, and then I'm looking for dry land, you know, I'm asking for the dry land, I'm asking to get put onto, you know, firm foundations. And this, so this is my story, and my dark night of the soul story. And eventually, you know, I did come across that, and I did feel that I was now on firmer foundation. And when I was on firmer foundation within myself, I noticed that the world around me and the way in which I was viewing everything had actually gone through a wonderful transformation, and I was really able to focus and see things in a new light. And that's the purpose of these things, is that we're looking to see things in a new light, to change the perspective of how we've seen things before, no longer from someone else's perspective, but something that you grow within yourself, and that you go from there and trust yourself. You know, it's learning to trust yourself and your own intuitive guidance, you know, as to what is right for you. And the thing is that when you're living from that space and from your heart, what is actually right for you is actually ending up to be right for everyone else around you. There is no objection, because it's love. It's love. And the only people that may object to that would be people who are not at peace with themselves. And you come across that, of course, you know, within our circumstances. And then it's how you learn to deal with that. And we don't all deal with that very well initially. You know, we have our moments, but we're not here to try and be perfect. We're just here to learn to develop and grow the best way that we can in the circumstances that we have. And that's it. But yeah, dark night of the soul, I would say, if you're in one of those situations or it's coming up your way, you are on a wonderful, and you need to acknowledge this for yourself, a wonderful spiritual awakening.
So I think that I like that you were saying we don't regret your spiritual journey. And I think if all of us, I never thought about that before, but I don't either. And even though there's the dark night of the soul, I sometimes wonder, even before I was consciously aware of starting my spiritual journey, I was already having dark nights of the soul experiences. You know, if you're having them at what, 3 years old, then or 5 years old or 7, then you used to things being tough from the very beginning. You know, it's not easy, and you're not mollycoddled or anything like that. So I guess for me, what I would be saying,
Before you go on, I just want to say the letting go of certain things, I think, is probably the hardest, because you know, the attachments that we make with people and with things and circumstances can be something that we can say to ourselves, but I can never change that, or I can't move from that. This, you know, there are certain things that may be structures in your life that have to stay, but then it's what you do around that, you know. But you do need to give yourself the time of day to let all your emotions filter through and all your thoughts filter through, so that you can come into to some form of clarity. And again, discussion, you know, some help and assistance with that is ideal, because they're not necessarily that easy to deal with on your own, unless you are an old soul and you know, you've kind of learned the way. And even old souls, to be fair, would prefer another old soul or someone else to discuss these things with too, you know.
yeah, I was gonna say also, even if you're an old soul, because of the amnesia, we have all chosen. Sometimes we don't even know that we're an old soul, but you know, we don't, even old souls, having been on the planet or having had so many lifetimes, will still need the support. So we're about to end our clip for today, but I just want to say a few things. I just want to highlight a few things. So if you're in a dark night of the soul experience, just from our discussion, from my experience, from whatever Louise has been saying, and you know, our discussions prior to this, I would say, if you're going through a dark night of the soul experience, keep an open mind about it. If you're feeling like you're going crazy, talk to somebody. Talk to your friends, you know, your soul family, talk to them. Also, in that process, the inner voice is very important. That self-talk is so important, because you will be beating yourself up anyway about things not working out, because you're asking yourself, why can't I make this work? Why is it that I've been able to do this all the time and suddenly I can't do it? And in your mind, you'll be like whipping yourself. And so I think it's important to be easy, to apply self-love, to make sure that you don't, just beat upon yourself in such a way that yourself feels like there's no one on the side. Because the first person to be on the side of you is you, no one else, right? It should be the first person. You should be the first person for yourself, right? That is your self-love going on there. Do meditations, they work. Take some time with nature. Take some time to be in quiet spaces. And do the mindfulness, the breathing, the breath work that you can do. Do the yoga if you need to. Pilates, fitness, something that is going to appeal to all parts of you in a holistic way. Your mind, your body, your soul, your energy, or all those things. And can't talk to the right people. If you sense that if you had to discuss something with someone that was going to put you down, don't go there. Listen to that, because at least that instinct will tell, that intuition is still there. Your guidance system is still there. I know in my dark night of the soul moments, this last one I went through, there were very few people that came into my space that I had a chat with that were not supportive. Because as you keep growing through these experiences, you attract the right kind of people into your world. And you then have friends that are soul family. You have family that are soul family, not just family, right? And so you'll know who you're going to talk to and discuss things with. And, I've got to say this. I say all of this, and that I say, and whatever we've been talking about earlier, I say it because I've come to these realizations now, not before. Because when I was younger, I was doing all these things myself. Like I would beat myself up in my head. I would be telling myself to be better. I would talk to just anybody. I would not apply my discernment into, should I tell that person this, or should I tell that person who's never got my back about what I'm going through? Because what they're going to do is make it worse. They're not going to actually make me feel better. So I would say, look to do those things in your life. Be easy with you and give yourself a lot of self-love. Because this is not about you being a bad person. This is not about you being a failure. This is not about you being anything but an evolving soul that needs to finish the things or learn the things it came to learn and evolve through in this lifetime. That is what it's about. And if anything, the best thing about it is that you're going to be growing better. You're going to be in a better space once you come through on the other side. And you will never have to go back and do all these things again. You might have to go back and do some of those things for whatever reason, for another lesson, but you will never have to go and do it to that extent again. Because if you've had the worst dark night of the soul experience now, for example, it can never be, the next time can never be like that. It could be like, okay, the answers earlier because you've learned that it's not about you not performing. It's more about the fact that it's things that you need to recognize and identify and behave in a certain way that takes you through easily. So
loneliness can be very much part of this experience too, when you realize that there's a lot that you perhaps have to let go of, and it can be difficult. And loneliness is something that you may be actually resisting, but I would encourage you, don't, because one of the best friends that you'll ever have is yourself, because you won't shit on yourself, although you have done occasionally, but you learn not to do it as much as perhaps you've done before. And the best person to be with sometimes when you're going through this is with yourself. And you'll find that she as you dig in and get to know yourself more, is it's wonderful. It's truly wonderful, and the guidance that comes through from your higher intuition and your higher self is nothing but pure gold, pure gold. Yeah.
Right.
So have courage, and keep growing, and don't be afraid, and all is well.
And keep going. And keep growing, but keep going too. Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, Louise, anything else before we sign out?
It's a rich life, you know, in all kinds of manners and stuff. But thank you, Rose, for engaging in this topic. It is vast. We haven't by any means discussed the whole thing, and we couldn't in the time that we have, but just to touch on maybe a few things that people could perhaps pick up on that may be supportive and helpful to them. And of course, you know, we're here as well, and you know, we can put our hats on, you know, to be the listener, you know, the for those that maybe need somebody to talk to as well. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for everyone for listening and bearing with us. And yeah,
Well, thank you.
enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much for your time, Louise. I appreciate it. And to everyone joining us, I want to say we're not experts at this. What you got today was real life experience of it. Our learnings, our education about it, our going through it, and us having gone through it, and then coming out on the other side and saying, this is what I learned through it. You know, so, you know, if you are in a dark night of the soul, lots of love and light to you is what I say. And I say that not in so sorry for you, but love and light to you. And I know that you'll come through. We know that you'll come through on the other side. And
Absolutely.
it was, you know, it's only about learning and growing, and you know, it's your soul getting grown up, as we say, getting grown up. Okay. And no matter what happens, remember that you are so loved, a child of the universe, so loved. And there's a soul family here on the planet for you. A lot of the dark night of the soul experiences are being experienced by people that are awakening to their purpose here on the planet in this time when it's going through the great transformation that it is going through. And so sometimes it takes that deep shaking to wake us up faster than we would have ordinarily. And also remember that if you're here and you're here and purpose to be on a mission on this planet, then you have to wake up and go through this. You can't go through it sleeping or your blinkers on. The transition process, however it happens, it happens. The experience, the dark night of the soul is so vast because it concerns all of us, and we're all having experiences in a variety of ways. Here we have similar feelings on things, or the same feelings about things, and we have some aspects that I can identify, for example, that Louise might be experiencing, but maybe not all, but maybe some. But there are so much, these aspects are so common. You can find common ground on it, that you know, okay, I know what that feels like because this is how I felt when such and such happened. And so, you know, we are going through that. So, you know, take heart, be strong, have courage, and it's all going to be great. It's going to be good. You're going to come out on the other side. We are going to come out on the other side. So much love and light to every one of you. Thank you for joining us. And namaste. We'll catch you next time. Yeah.
Much love. Much love.
Much love.
Keep growing, people. Keep growing.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.